So today we are going to be replacing the thermal paste on the Bitaxe Hex. So recently it hasn't been working, it's just been hashing at 0, so we are going to repaste it, open it up, see if we can find any problems down in there. And that's mainly, I think, because we replaced the fans. Maybe there's some heating element, plus we did underclock it heavily. So the plan today is to take off a lot of the things. So we can take off the internet router by here. And the main plan is to take off just the top part. So if you can see here, the way that it works is that you have this plexiglass, kind of like the Zybra 8, and then the board is underneath. And what we want to do is we want to take it all the way down so we can get access to this. And then on the bottom, you can see that there's pins to the actual heatsink, so we need to get those off as well and look underneath there. So that's what we're going to mainly be doing. Again, we're going to be using our screwdriver that we used for the Zybra 8, so we've got a bunch of attachments. I'll leave a link in the description to something kind of similar to this, which comes with all of these, as you see right there. So firstly, let's take off the plexiglass top, and then we'll come back when we've kind of got access to the heatsink and the actual board so we can see what's happening in there. So we're going to take that off and then detach the fans as well. Okay, so as you can see here, you kind of have the fans taken off here, and then you can see the electronics in here. You have two of the fans plugged in there. You have a bit of a different way of actually powering it. I think this might be the problem. This connector's maybe not doing the correct thing. But it looks like there's obviously a positive and a negative, and then it actually connects into another wire, which then the barrel jack plugs into. So you actually get power. And then we have just the heatsink here. So what we can do is unscrew these, I believe, because these red things are keeping it in place. And same with this one. So we don't need to get rid of the other red ones, we just need to take this actually off and then take the board off of the pins. As if you can see that in there, there's a little pin by there. And from there, I think there's screws going into 6 or 9 points on the actual heatsink, and then we can get a look at all the chips underneath. And from there we can start cleaning it. So this heatsink is also not that clean, so we'll do a cleanup of the heatsink, we'll do a cleanup of the actual board underneath, and then anything else by here we'll also clean up as well. So next step is to flip it over and take the actual board off of the plexiglass by there. Okay, so as you can see here, we have the thing exposed. We can't actually unplug these without undoing these, so you might need to take them off to allow us to actually just use this or move it around. So we have taken the plexiglass off from the bottom, and that gives us access to the heatsink, which is, I'm assuming, just screwed in through these 9 points here. So we're gonna have a look at taking that out. It might take a while because over time we might just decide to take these off as well, but we'll decide that if this is too hard to do it. And then we'll actually reveal the chips underneath. So I'm assuming you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 chips, the way that it's looking right there, but we'll have to see when we actually take it off. So you guys can let me know in the comments as well if this is a design. I know that it's open source technically, but I don't know who actually put the Bitaxe Hex together as a design. But you guys can let me know in the comments. We also took the LCD screen off to get access to the fans. If you saw the fan upgrade video, we've never taken this bottom part off, so it's a good time to go in, clean everything, and make sure that it's running properly. As we said at the start of the video, it didn't actually work, so it was just running at 0 degrees and it was hashing at 0 hash rate. So that leads me to believe that one of the chips is not powering on because of the underclock that we actually set. So maybe we just need to up the core voltage a little bit so that all chips power on. And there was also somebody in the comments that gave me a great overclock for the Zyber 8, so I'll be trying that out in another video. But if we turn this over, you can just see there kind of what it looks like. Very dusty. And I don't actually know, now that I'm looking at it, what this is for, because I haven't seen anything else. So these are the two fans. That's the screen, but I don't know what these 6 pins are for. So if somebody can let me know what they are for as well, that would be great, because we might be able to do some upgrades with it, whatever actually plugs into there. So let's take the heatsink off, and then we'll come back when it's fully off and we'll do a release. So here we have it. It should just pop off right now. So hopefully you guys can see that. And then put the heatsink to the side. So there we have it. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 chips, and then the heatsink, kind of the same thing. I don't know about this heatsink. I'm assuming it's a pretty standard, just row of aluminium, and then it's just drilled holes in the bottom, as you can kind of see there. I don't think that this is any kind of specialized. It's just machined out at a certain size, and then the holes are actually drilled into the bottom. But we'll do the same process that we've done with the other ones. So with the Avalon Nano that you saw, maybe there was one last week where we were repasting the Avalon Nano. That was very caked on, but with these kind of less industrialized miners, the thermal paste tends to be way easier to take off. So all we're going to do is just hit it with a cotton swab under each chip. That looks a bit caked on, at least on that one right there. And then we will take it off the heatsink as well and then repaste it. So that's what we need to do. I still didn't manage to get off these things because you actually have to unclip that, and I couldn't get it off the plexiglass, so we're just going to have to clean it whilst those are kind of sitting to the side. And then we're going to show you kind of the fully cleaned product. So it leads me to believe that Tiny Chip Hub is the people that actually manufacture these, because I haven't seen them on any other website, but you guys can let me know. And then you see there Bitaxe Hex, which is the 303, which these are ultra chips, and we'll see the number underneath them once we clean it off. So let's get that all cleaned up, as well as the heatsink that we have here. So we're just going to take off all that thermal paste, and then we'll repaste them. So let's get back when it's cleaned up. Okay, so as you can see there, we have our chips on the board and cleaned up as much as I possibly can. We have 6 ultra chips. Let's try get you a better look at that now on the camera. So as you can see, BM1366AL. Same here. Same here. Same here. Here and here. So one thing I want to say about this as well is that when I was looking at the chips, at least at a deeper level, they do look like they have a bit of kind of grain across them. Now, I've tried to clean them as best as I can, but it looks like there's still like stuff actually stuck flush onto there, which might be the thermal paste. So there's not really much we can do about that. But if you look on the back side of this as well, you will see all of the, I think it's the voltage regulators, the smaller type of voltage things on the back right here. And that's pretty much it. There's a different version of this which is not using ultra chips, it's using the super chips. I think that can do around 4 to 5 terahash. And then the Zyber 8 that we did a couple of videos ago, that is 8 chips, and it's just a slightly bigger version of this with 2 more at the end. So now that we have it all cleaned, and we have the heatsink cleaned, one of the things about the heatsink, it actually took ages to get the thermal paste off. I don't know why. It just wasn't coming off. It was sticking into the actual heatsink, so maybe we'll have to do a little bit more cleaning around that. But let's actually go grab our thermal paste and we can start actually applying it to these chips for new thermal paste, we're going to be using slightly less, because in this one, when we were taking it off, it didn't really look like there was much thermal paste, so we're just going to use as little as possible for these 6 that we have here. So again, we're using the MX6. I know some people were saying something about the Cryonauts one. We do have that, we can test it out. If you guys really want a video on different thermal paste testing, we can do that. It is very dependent though. So if you have, one thermal paste and you add a slightly bit more of it, it is going to affect the results. So I don't know how we would really test it. We'd have to get a Bitaxe and then maybe test it to the same thermal paste and keep going over and over and over again. Probably on the default heatsink that you can pull with spring pins, so that we can get a better result of which one's actually working better with the same amount. But let's go on and apply this, and then we'll show you after we've applied them all. As you can see there, we have the thermal paste on each of them. As I was just putting that on, I was thinking to myself, maybe we could do a test on different types of thermal paste on each different chip, and then we take note of which one is which. But I don't think that the temperature actually reads off of each chip. It just reads as an average of all of them, because you would assume that these 2 in the middle would get hotter than these 2 on the outside, just based on the fact that they're sandwiched between 2 other chips here, and the heatsink is going to obviously transfer heat across. It's not just going to warm up right there, it's going to try and transfer it outwards. I also don't know if it reads each one, if you can get a reading of each chip as well in terms of the temperature or not. So somebody can let me know in the comments if that is a possibility in the future, and we'll try it out. But now it's time to just put the heatsink back on. Probably going to flip it over, so have the heatsink lying flat like that, and then flip this over and put it onto it, and then we'll get it all back put into the case and try turning it on after that. Hopefully it does start hashing. If not, we'll try and change the overclocks, and we'll show you on the computer screen. So let's get the heatsink put back on. We'll do a live turn on of it, and then hopefully we don't get 0 hash and it actually starts up hashing, and then we can check the temperatures. After putting it back together, we have successfully put everything in. So all of these had to be put in on the back, as you can see. I didn't know what the tightness was to kind of be on those, but we just basically put this, and this one. So the middle one and the outer corners as the tightest, and then these 4 aren't basically as tight to actually clamp it down, otherwise you'll bend the board underneath. And then I think these as well were not put in, so we've added those back in, but not as tight as well, because we don't want to flex the board downwards. And that's pretty much it. Attach the fans back up, and now let's actually give it a whirl, turn it on. Okay, so looks like it's turned on. Let's check in there to see if it actually starts hashing or not. So it has started hashing back up, that's very good. And we'll take it over to the computer just to see what we're getting on the results for the last part of the video. Okay, so here we are on the dashboard, and there's a couple of things that I wanted to talk about with this Bitaxe Hex that I've noticed after doing the efficiency video. So we're getting really good efficiencies on this miner, and I'm worrying if the reporting is actually correct on it. So this efficiency is obviously around 14 currently, but it sits at around an average of 12 or 13 joules per terahash, which is actually below what I see even on the Nerd Q axes, trying to underclock them and trying to underclock the gammas that we have. Which is strange, because I would think that with older generation chips you wouldn't be able to underclock and get these efficiencies. So in that efficiency video we were talking about how to try and get way more efficient underclocks, and I couldn't really get any of the Nerd Q axes or the newer generation chips to actually get down to these levels of efficiency. And that leads me to believe that either the power is not recording or not being recorded correctly, or the hash rate is not being recorded correctly, because these efficiencies are technically better than an S21 Pro, and these are the oldest generation, so BM1 366, if you type this in, this is for an S19 XP, which we wouldn't expect. We would expect it to be around 18 joules per terahash. But even on the logs, it seems like everything is working fine. We haven't had any chip kind of breakouts. So if we pause it here, you can see chip 3, chip 1, chip 2, chip 4. So all of them are functioning, but it's very strange to see such a good efficiency out of the miner, even when we realistically shouldn't be getting it out of something like this. I know it's just jumped up then, but maybe it's having some sort of meltdown. So the fan speed is also very low, which is weird to see as well, because we wouldn't expect us to need such a low fan speed. The heatsink's probably doing a lot of work. I was just going to up it then because maybe it's getting a little bit too hot. I don't actually know the temperatures that these chips are supposed to run at. I know with the Bitaxe, at least for the gammas, they're supposed to run at around 60 degrees. That's probably a little bit above optimal. But for these type of chips, for the S19, I don't know what the actual target temperature should be for them. So you guys can let me know in the comments as well about that. But as I said, the efficiency seems to be good on it, and these were running for quite a while with good kind of average efficiencies. And I don't know why it says expected 6.11, 6.11 joules per terahash. That's obviously not the expected. But this might be the problem that we also were experiencing before we did the repasting, because as you can see, it's not actually hashing at the moment, which if we go into the logs, it's not really saying that anything is not fixed, which is weird as well. So I might need to do some back-end stuff. It just keeps coming up with this, creating jobs new, job dequeued. I think it's something to do with this overclock. Maybe it's just slightly too low, so we could bring it up to here, click save and restart. But it was hashing at that overclock before, which is a weird thing to see, at least on this. I think it allows you to go way lower on the overclocks than you would usually be able to without it basically cutting out or undervolting, which means that it's not really supplying any power. But we're having the same problem. I know it is hashing now. So we'll keep an eye on this, and maybe we'll do like an updated video. But if anyone can let me know why we're seeing so good efficiencies on this, even though it's an older generation chip, compared to the newer generation ones, which I can't get down to these efficiencies, at least stable efficiencies, then please let me know in the comments. If you guys enjoyed the video, please leave a like, subscribe, and check out all the other videos on the channel.